taking the team total. I'm taking first quarter, first half, full game, taking it all. OU all the way. I lost so much money on OU.
I never a rat's ass about Twitter.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free.
Cat starts going, all crazy. And they run through our ass like shit through a tin horn, man.
Alrighty, what is up? And welcome to Not Another CFB Pod. We are brought to you by the Coda Sports Gambling Network. This is just a fun little pod. I brought our guy Meerkat back. The folks wanted him back, and here he is. He had a great Super Bowl, so we're going to get into that. Great Super Bowl gambling-wise, that is. He did wonderful. I wasn't terrible, but I wasn't great either. So we need to hear from someone who actually made some bank from that. We're also going to get into the college football futures for next year. We're going to be talking Heisman, national championship odds, and then we're going to talk NFL championship odds as well, because, you know, that's Meerkat, as I've said, is kind of an NFL guy. That's what he's sharp with. I feel like he may disagree. I would have to say he is, because he killed it that Super Bowl. So without further ado, what's going on, Meerkat?
PG, far too kind, as always. We just got a little lucky at the Super Bowl, but it felt good. That's the best way to cap the NFL season. You're right. I'm an NFL guy first and foremost. I'll bet on everything. I enjoy all sports, sure, but the NFL is my baby. Gambling on the NFL. I mean, I already am looking forward to the draft, betting on that.
Oh, we can talk about that a little bit too. I didn't even think about that.
We're already talking about championship futures for next year. I already have money locked in. Not surprising on who, but closing the season out with that Super Bowl was nice, because, you know, Super Bowl is always bittersweet. It's your biggest gambling day of the year, but it's the last day to bet on football of the year. So you got your yin and your yang, I guess, if that even applies there. But it was nice to end it on a high note, that's for sure. We hit some big bets. We hit the middle, which was probably the biggest thing going. I mean, I really love that Rams money line, but, you know, I just said those backdoor Bengals, even though it wasn't a backdoor by the Bengals to cover, they're the ones who got backdoor, but still they kept it close. And when you get when you can get a middle that sweet in the Super Bowl, you got to take full advantage of it.
Yeah, so let's talk about the middle that you had, because you did have Rams money line, and then I believe you had a teaser with the Bengals. Is that right? Did you tease the under or the over?
Over. So we got lucky. It was Rams money line with the over 42.5.
Okay.
Game finished at 43.
Yeah.
So it was basically like, hey guys, like the over is the popular pick. I think the number's right on the money, but I'm not going to bet the under. There's no chance of betting
not in the Super Bowl.
So we tease it down 6 points. It turned out to be the right amount of points. We get that half-point hook to hit the over for the Rams and the over 42.5 at plus money. And then the middle, I was just like, I really think this is going to happen. I wrote about it. I brought it up on the pod. I've been harping on it all week leading up, and I took the Bengals plus 10 with the over 42.5 as well, about minus 110. And that was just a gut check. That's, I really thought the Rams were going to win, but I liked the Bengals to keep it close. I wasn't expecting a blowout. I liked, the first half for the Rams was something I did like, that was brought up, I think, by Pace. So that he got me into that. But, the Bengals ended up having that lead late and getting backdoored, but it still ended up working out in the end. And just that half point on the over, a sigh of relief, because it would have been 42 points and, the middle hit with the other picks. I would have been disgusted.
Yeah. So one of the picks I hit was Bengals plus 10 and the under, which it was kind of like, it was nice. Kind of everybody won on those teased overs and teased unders. It was just right in that middle range. I guess that's what you pay the teaser money for. So I was happy with that. I did have Rams -4 as my big pick. Just barely missed out on that. I wanted to see OT. We almost had OT. Some questionable calls, arguably late in the season, or late in the game rather, but those have been kind of beat to death already. Didn't want to get too much into those. Let's talk about the fun stuff, because you and I both had heads, and it was such an electric start when it hit heads. I was so
incredible.
I don't know how you felt when it hit heads.
Well, it was just the best way to start the game, because outside of, the Rams and the Bengals bets, like the main plays on the game, that was my second biggest play. I threw $100 on the coin toss. Usually it's like, a $25, $50 thing for some fun. I'm like, no, we're gonna really set the tone here. And
love it.
The one reason I took cuts was just for redemption for Josh Allen getting screwed over by Tails. He should have been playing in that Super Bowl. Let's be real. Tails kept him out of it. So we had to fade Tails, and it just ended up working. The universe aligned. It felt great.
It felt so good to get heads. I should mention that I had the under, and that was a big point that I hit for the national anthem. And it went way over, which I found out later on that I guess, and I'm going to butcher who the artist was that she used the inspiration for, but basically she used another artist's track that has done the Super Bowl before. And I want to say it's Celine Dion, and she went over by more than just about anybody. And they used a real similar track, similar pacing that she used. It was electric still though. Like I had a lot of buddies over and we had the countdown going. They knew what I had, and we were all like, come on, come on, come on. And it just, obviously,
that chorus, man.
Yeah, we knew we were about 2 lines over, and we just kind of melted. And then my biggest bet of the whole night was that first kickoff to not be a touchback. Lo and behold, and I'll take this into account next time, we get McPherson in there. He's an absolute unit with his leg. I knew that the ball was going to go into the end zone. Then it was just up to, is the returner going to bring this ball out of the end zone? Instead, what he does is just plants his feet on the goal line and just does like this, and the ball just barely goes over his head into the end zone for a touchback. That was a pretty brutal way to start. But again, it's so fun betting on those one play props like that. Like we were just so into it and having fun with it. I kind of just collapsed on the floor. It would have made for some great content, but we were just getting the night started at that point. I said, that was like my biggest bet. So it kind of hurt me for that went into the end zone, but that's how the things go. I mean, the trends pointed towards not a touchback, but that's gambling for you. Sometimes the thing that you don't think is going to happen happens.
Exactly. And that's why we love it, especially when it goes in our favor. We get
it's even better when it goes in our favor.
Yeah, but we hit some other fun things during that. I really liked hitting that Trey Hendrickson first sack plus 500 just because
that was
everybody
electric.
Was on Aaron Donald or Leonard Floyd or Von Miller. Felt like
nobody
was
not
the Rams
taking
a Ram for first sack. With how that was going to play out, which how it ended up playing out. But Hendrickson, an elite guy, 14 regular season sacks. I was just happy to see him get after it, even against Whitworth, because outside of Whitworth, who is an old man, that line was not good. But yeah, it was a fun game. I think my second biggest hit of the night outside of the main plays was actually I keep a little money on Caesars just because they like to offer some good promos here and there. Forgot I even took it to like mid game. I had $25 on Odell. I had plus 1,000 first touchdown.
Okay.
Now that sucked. I felt bad for Odell. I mean,
that was brutal. Yeah.
First off, though, hitting that play, it's not something to brag about. That was like the most public play ever. Drake had 500,000 on his Instagram. Everybody was on Odell to score.
Anytime
touchdown
score,
for it was nice. Sometimes the public wins, and it was sweet when it happens on such a large scale with so many new gamblers or people who don't gamble often that took that play. I knew people who don't place bets that had $10 on that just because it was the hot thing to do. It hit. I mean, good for the public, man.
Yeah, we deserve to get some wins every now and then. One of the bigger plays that I had that hit was the over. I think it was 6.5 sacks at plus 190. Obviously, we ended up with 9 sacks total in the game, so I could even win higher with that. But that felt good to get because there were parts of that game where it was like, and we even talked about it on the pod, like the Bengals are going to come out, do these short, quick passes. They're not going to let this pass rush get to them. And the Rams defensive line was having trouble getting to Joe Burrow. And, we, other than that first sack that you hit, it seemed like the Bengals weren't getting many sacks. So I was like, dang, I don't know if this is going to hit. And in that second half, I think it was specifically the third quarter, we had a ton of sacks hit right there. I also had Leonard Floyd anytime sack. Well, I think it was over 0.5 sack. Not any. It'd be cool if it was anytime sack, but 0.5 sacks. Hit that. I was hyped. I forgot that Leonard Floyd changed his number too. I was looking for 94 and he's 54 now. I just totally blanked out. I was like 54. Oh, that's Floyd. And I just went crazy, but it won't compare to how hype I got when you hit your first sack, at plus 500. That was about as excited as I got for someone, not only that I didn't have their bet, but that wasn't even there with me at the time. I got really excited. Everybody was like, what? And I was like, dude, Meerkat had this pick on the podcast. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of positive vibes. And then we had the pregame Twitter spaces, which was really fun. And then the postgame Twitter spaces, which was really fun. I don't remember a lot of the postgame Twitter space, but I think we had a productive time based on what I've heard.
We did.
I had some friends over. We were outside, and they were kind of carrying on. It was kind of loud, and I just had my phone up to my ear, like kind of doing like this, and So I was hoping it wasn't too bad, but there was lots of people in there. We had lots of fun, went for a long time, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. All in all, I thought a really fun Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, it was a great Super Bowl. There, people are saying, oh, it was a little boring, yada, yada. I thought it was a great game. It was just a good game of football. It's not like it was void of points. Yeah, good game of football on both sides. Plenty of great storylines. It was hard to root against either of these quarterbacks going into it. And we got a dramatic finish. I don't know what more you could have wanted unless you wanted more points, which I don't blame you. But as just looking at it as a pure football game, it was a hell of a game. I like the result, obviously. And it was a good way to cap the season because we've had some stinker Super Bowls this last decade. Some like terrible ones, and people are complaining. Plus that halftime show, people are saying some people say it's the best ever. I won't get into that argument. I don't know if it was the best ever, but I think it might have been the most entertaining ever. That was fun. You're seeing 50 Cent come out of nowhere as a surprise. Guys hanging upside down. All the hits being played. It was so well executed. I mean, that halftime show was great. The game was great. Fantastic Super Bowl. Hat off to the NFL for once because they don't get it right that often.
No. Yeah, the halftime show is something I had completely kind of forgotten about. I loved the halftime show. That was one of their best shows that I've seen in a long time. Again, it's hard to debate best ever, whatever. It's not even worth it, really. I mean, to us, I think the reason somebody else brought this up might even been part of my take. It was one of those halftime shows that was crafted for people that are between, 22 and 35, somewhere in that range. And so that's where we are. And we just had a blast with it. I thought it was great. All the pacing of it was nice. The songs were all memorable. Everyone in my house was into it, loving it. And I thought it was just well done overall. It's kind of cool the way they designed. The stage was almost like a group of trailers hitched to each other if you kind of looked into it. And so it's obvious that's how they kind of brought it in and out. I'm sure they had some kind of tractor or something that kind of drug those out. That's a great design because I remember they'd try to build that thing and then it would leave big impressions on the field. Of course, we had turf this time around, but I had fun with it. Again, it would have been probably cool if it went to overtime, but I thought it was a well-fought game by the defense. There were some fun offensive plays. I think about the T. Higgins long touchdown that happened. Obviously the OBJ touchdown was cool. It sucked that he got hurt, but we didn't have too many injuries like that. And honestly, that was kind of a storyline that you could get into because it's like, man, now I want to see the Rams win for OBJ. Maybe you're an OBJ fan and you were so hyped and he started so hot. I did want to bring up one thing that we talked about in that pregame Twitter spaces was I said I thought Matt Stafford would win the MVP as long as they won, and he had less than 2 turnovers, even if Kupp went off. Well, Kupp went off, but he did have 2 interceptions, Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, a big reason why I think Cooper Kupp won it. I think with 1 interception, it's tough to say because Kupp was so big on that last drive that the Rams had, but I think my take was pretty close to being correct. Either way.
If OBJ doesn't get hurt either, too, but whether it's less production for Kupp and less of a storyline of Kupp kind of carrying that offense,
and then it's a bit more evenly distributed between the two. So Who knows? But I had fun. So that was our Super Bowl. It was a lot of fun, I thought, and you couldn't ask for a whole lot more, I think, from this season. We're also going to talk about the 2022-2023 season for both college football and NFL football. But before we do that, I wanted to get into our sponsor real quick. Not Another CFB Pod is sponsored by Moneyline Dice. Moneyline aims to revolutionize the sports betting market through the creation of both functional and novelty products that sports bettors of all levels will enjoy. Spotted by its golden peaks, the Moneyline logo symbolizes winning and winning big. Featured products include Moneyline Sports Betting Dice, Moneyline Sports Betting Pocket Notebook, Snapback Hat, and more. Use the promo code CODA10 to receive a 10% discount on your next order. That's promo code CODA10 for 10% off your next order at moneylinedice.com. Okay, Meerkat, before we jump into switch gears, kind of to college football, let's talk about the Super Bowl props from next year. I want to kick this off because I think we're on the same part for our main play on this. I said it earlier this season. I became a massive Bills fan at some point in the season. Love the way their defense is structured. Love Josh Allen and this offense. They're a lot of fun. They don't look to be losing too many pieces off of this offense for next year. That's why I like the Buffalo Bills plus 750 on the book I'm looking at. I've seen it plus 800, plus 850 at other places, but I love the Buffalo Bills. On my book, they're the second favorite behind Kansas City. So that'll be another dogfight. I hope at least they match up in the AFC Championship this time around instead of the round before that. But that's where I'm going with this. That's my primary play. You can kind of get into your primary one, and then we can go into kind of some dark horses or somebody maybe to look at, maybe at longer odds. But a lot of times these teams end up being one of the favorites. I think the Rams were one of the kind of top 4 favorites from last season. I'm going with the Bills for 2022, 2023. But let's see what Meerkat has.
No, you already know it, PG. I got a couple $100 on the Bills right now already. It's just insane odds. There's no way I can't be hammering them right now. I'm that confident in them because I'm not confident in, the Kansas City Chiefs as much. The way that roster's built, they're going to be losing people this offseason. You already saw them have a ton of issues this offseason with stuff. I don't see them, I see them competing and being the biggest hurdle for the Bills once again. Obviously, I'm not saying we're some better team all of a sudden, but I trust Brandon Beane. I think he's the best general manager in the league. I mean, you've seen what he's done with Buffalo in 4 or 5 years already. It's insane how he's turned this team around and how he's built this roster. The Bills are going to absolutely compete. The Bills probably would have beaten the Rams in that Super Bowl. If you look back at the Bills would have beaten the Bengals in the AFC Championship game. I mean, I truly believe this. Who knows what would have happened? I'm a bit of a realist. I'm not a complete homer. But when you look at the other odds, I mean, there's nothing I can truly talk myself into. I know I don't want to be mean to your Cowboys, but I'm not going to take the Cowboys at plus 1,400. I mean, that's good.
I'll get out in front of it.
I don't think it's enough.
I still think that's not long enough odds. I think it needs to be at least plus 2,000 for them.
I was going to say plus 2,000. I'd think about throwing something on it, but I don't think that's enough. You look at the Bengals just in it, still plus 1,600. Not a lot of confidence in them. The Rams, the winners at plus 1,100. It's really the Bills and KC. And you're seeing that with Vegas. And I think Vegas truly believes one of those teams will win the AFC, and whoever wins the AFC will win the Super Bowl next year, just based off these odds. I mean, you got the 49ers up there. Is it going to be Trey Lance? You can't let him
so many question marks.
There's way too many question marks with the 49ers, who are a bit fraudulent this year. I've talked about that enough. Though that's absurd odds for them. The Packers, I mean, people are saying Rodgers is going to stay now, but do we really know what's going to happen there? That dude's such a freak. I love him to death. I love the drama. Bring more of it. He's like bring a little taste of the NBA to the NFL with Aaron Rodgers.
Absolutely.
But there's just no other odds I can truly talk myself into liking other than the Bills or the Chiefs, because the Chiefs being better odds than the Bills right now most places is a little crazy to me, but there's no chance I'm going to take the Chiefs.
I like it. Well, some books do have, if you're on either the Chiefs or the Bills and you like both of them, some books will have, Super Bowl odds, AFC versus NFC. And basically if you take it now, you get whatever AFC comes out, that's your pick. And you may get some good value with just taking the AFC money line as of right now. I've got kind of a fun one, Meerkat. This is the Arizona Cardinals at plus 2,200, only because the last 2 Super Bowl winners have won it in their home stadium. And in 2022, apparently the Super Bowl is going to be in Arizona. I mean, who knows? They've got so many question marks, though. And that's a good point that you brought up. All these teams that you want to bet on, the top 2 teams we talked about, they have way fewer questions than these other teams. Who knows if Kyler's going to play? Who knows who's going to be the coach? Whatever. We've still got some questions. The only one that I kind of thought about at the odds that they're at, and this is only because I believe Aaron Rodgers will end up staying with the Packers, is the Packers on my book at plus 1,600. Again, I wish that was maybe 1,800. I think that's what you said on your book, or 2,000 even, would make me a little more enticed, just because I believe the Bills and the Chiefs are just built so much better than these teams. We saw obviously the Packers losing the first round in their matchup. Didn't look great. I don't love the way the Packers are built for, their stadium where they play. It's great early in the season when Green Bay's nice and warm, just like everywhere else. But when you get to the playoffs and it's snowing and it's cold, I don't really want an offense that's built on, I need Aaron Rodgers to get me 300 yards. They had been running the ball better in, the regular season, but once the playoffs came around, they were kind of disappointing. So it's tough for me to jump on with the Chargers there, but with the Packers there. But other than that, I mean, unless you want to put something fun on the Cardinals just because they're going to have the home field, I don't know. All these other teams have way more questions than the two we mentioned before.
Yeah, and it's just like people I think are going to be trying to find this year's Bengals in some of these odds, which you're not going to get that every year out of a team. Although Super Bowl surprises are pretty consistent in the NFL. So I don't know. There's some good teams you can look at right now. I mean, if you think Aaron Rodgers leaves, he's going to the Broncos. That's why the Broncos have pretty decent odds right now at plus 2,200. It's a well-built team, good defense, great offense without a quarterback. I mean, that's something that makes sense. The Buccaneers is another type gimmicky one you can take because people are already saying Tom Brady's retirement.
He's not done yet.
Sticking. Yeah. He's still a Buccaneer. I mean, he would go back there. Plus 2,800. It's a bit absurd. And then I don't know. There's nothing else that I look at and I see that I want to take. I mean, Steelers, if they get lucky at quarterback.
Oh,
maybe the defense is not bad. I mean, those are absurd.
They're a decently built roster. For a team that's that far down there.
They beat the Bills this year. I mean, they're not a bad team outside of quarterback and offensive line. They're not those are just absurd odds for them.
Yeah, I agree. Well, hey, let's shift gears here. First, I want to talk about college football futures. I've got the 2023 NCAA championship, and I think it works a little different for NCAA football. It's really only the top 3 teams this year that can win it. Maybe you could talk yourself into the top 4, but that's just the way NCAA works with recruiting and the talent these teams have. Alabama at plus 225, Georgia at plus 375. Obviously, they're losing a few key pieces from this year's team. And Ohio State at plus 500. I think that's really the only teams that can win it. And you can kind of see that with Vegas because then you jump all the way up to plus 1,400 with A&M and plus 1,400 with USC. They've got no chance. They have no offensive line.
You know what I'm just realizing right now, and this is very simple. I don't know how I didn't realize this before with, how the odds drop off so drastically. I mean, it's because they know who's going to make the playoff, and it's the teams that are going to be in the playoff. And what was it announced yesterday that they're going to stick with the next 4 years of their lease at 4 teams. So don't expect the expansion anytime soon. When that happens, say it goes to 8 teams, we're going to see, 6 to 7 teams with pretty favorable odds. But this is really just them being like, these are who's going to be in the, the actual playoff. Yeah,
exactly. So, I mean, those first 3 teams, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, I think that's 3 of the 4 teams that ends up in the college football playoff. Who's the 4th one? Could be a lot of different teams. Right now, Meerkat, though, I've got to go with Alabama to win this whole thing. I don't know if you know this. Georgia's best receiver from this year's team, George Pickens, transferred from the team that won the national championship to the team they beat in the national championship. He transfers to Alabama. So now the best receiver from Georgia is on Alabama's roster. Alabama at plus 225. That's the best you're going to get them all year. They've got Bryce Young coming back for another year. He was the Heisman Trophy winner this year. Maybe the worst Heisman I've ever seen in my life. That's a different point. This team this year was just kind of weird with that stuff, but Alabama at plus 225. I think that's the only way you go. They're going to have basically everybody back for as far as Bama is concerned. Obviously, they're always going to have pros going in the NFL, but they've got more coming back this year than they normally do. My only issue with Bama is that they have Bill O'Brien as their offensive coordinator. Don't love Bill O'Brien, but at the same time, he got him to the Natty last year. I think he can at least get him there this year. And then if nothing else, that money line that it's going to be in the national championship is not going to be plus 225. I'm taking the plus 225 with Alabama. And I think that's really the only way you can go with this, unless you're just some huge A&M believer. And I'm not. They're going to have a brand new quarterback in there. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on the college football futures, but that's where I'm at.
I'll be taking my sprinkle homer bet on Michigan plus 3,300. I mean,
that's good value.
Good odds. I don't see them making it to the playoff. I mean, they were this close this year, but Ohio State's going to be. I'm going to be interested to see how that offense changes. Losing, Williams and Olave; those are 2 huge losses for Thompson. Sorry, for Stroud. But I forgot who's the third guy who had that one insane game this year.
Smith and Jigba.
That's his. I can't pronounce it. I wasn't
Jackson
even going to try.
Smith and Jigba.
So, I mean, it's not like, their offense is going to be crippled with the loss of receiver. I'm going to be interested to see how Stroud goes this year, but how can it not be Alabama? I mean, Bryce Young's good. That offense is great. The defense is going to be popping. I mean, I think even, Will Anderson has pretty high Heisman odds as a linebacker.
He does. He'll be back.
That it's going to be a big year for Bama. And it's just like, how can you bet against Bama before the season, before they get, maybe that one questionable game where they only beat Citadel by 45 instead of 55.
They don't cover.
Start to question though. Yeah, exactly. So I don't see how it's not Bama right now, unless you truly believe CJ Stroud takes that next massive step this year, or like you said, you're an A&M believer or something.
Right. Yeah. And that brings me to our last kind of thing. This is the Heisman odds to win the Heisman in 2022. You got Bryce Young as the favorite at plus 300. I don't like that. And the only reason is because he's won it once, and the voters are really stingy about it if you're going to win it twice. It's only ever happened once, I think, maybe twice. But either way, they never give the trophy out twice, which is why I'm going with CJ Stroud at plus 450. And it's for a lot of the reasons you covered. They lost a lot of those big name receivers. They're going to the NFL draft. Guess what? There's great receivers right behind him. You just haven't heard of them yet. And the media that votes on them is going to give all the credit to CJ Stroud. Oh man, he lost all those great players. And now look at the numbers he's putting up. Well, I mean, the realists know he had just as good receivers behind those guys as he did that were playing. But now he's going to get a lot more of the credit. The reason why he didn't win it this year is because he had two receivers that were stealing votes from him. For that thing this year. So CJ Stroud at plus 450, solid value. And I think, again, one of those situations where that's about as good of odds you're going to get for him all season. I'm looking at Ohio State's schedule for next year because that does play a big role. The only team that I'm really worried about, they play Notre Dame right off the bat, but they play them in Columbus. Notre Dame, the new head coach, new regime. It's going to be a tough ask for them. They're also replacing a lot of talent. I mean, they play Wisconsin at home. They're going to play Michigan at home. Other than that, they've got a pretty easy schedule. They do have to play Penn State, in Pennsylvania. That's going to be a popping game. I don't know what to expect from Penn State this year, but that's a lot of the things you got to consider when you're looking at Heisman odds is, what's this team going to look like? Are they going to be 11-0? Are they going to be 12-0? Are they going to have a couple losses? I think, at the most, maybe they lose that game, at Penn State. I don't know what Penn State's going to look like, but CJ Stroud at plus 450, I think that's about as good a value as you're going to get. So I'll go with him.
I agree with you. The value on Young isn't great. I still might dabble in it, though, because I think Alabama's going to be incredible.
They're going to be so good.
He had such a bad Heisman winning year this year that if he's, marginally better next year, it's going to be hard to argue against giving it to him again when he was, he got it with a worse season the year before. And maybe Alabama was better.
What if his stats are even better than they were this year and he won it? Like, how do you deny him?
Exactly. That's the only point I'm thinking, but I don't hate looking at an Ohio State guy. If you like CJ Stroud to make that huge next step, I love that. I like CJ Stroud. I'm kind of a believer in him as a Michigan. I'm speaking unbiased. Michigan fan out the door right now, just college football, Meerkat. I don't hate Travion Henderson there. He's got odds all around the place, but I mean, he was great last year. He had over 1,500 yards, 19 touchdowns. If Ohio State's a wagon this year, he's going to be a huge part of it. It's not crazy to think with a bigger role this year, he scores, 20 to 25 touchdowns, which, maybe hits 2,000 all-purpose yards. Like, those are big numbers on a big team. It's hard not to turn some attention to him. It's not bad odds right now because, if you're going to take an Ohio State guy, you're probably going to go Stroud right now, but he's not far behind.
Yeah, he's going to be the second guy on that list. And if you're looking at a Bama Heisman winner, you mentioned him earlier, Will Anderson Jr. I've got him on my book at plus 2,500. Could be good value. We haven't seen a defensive guy win in a long time, but I think in order for him to win, you're going to have a year like this year where there's no real clear offensive guy that they just are begging to give this trophy to. It's a long shot, but that's kind of the second guy from Bama, I think, where you're looking at Travion Henderson from Ohio State. I think that's kind of the similar role that Will Anderson's going to play. He's kind of going to be the face of that defense. Really can't believe he's back because he could have been a first-round pick if he was eligible to leave.
He's a true football guy.
just a freak. So I can't wait for the next college football season. We got a long ways to go. That first game, real interestingly, Meerkat, I don't know if you know this, first game next year is going down in Dublin, Ireland. Northwestern versus Nebraska. It's going to be, people are going to tune in, and we'll probably do some Twitter spaces for that, just because people are going to need their football fix. There's going to be this weird game going on in Ireland. I can't wait to
fade Northwestern.
Oh, same here. And I actually think Nebraska will be solid next year. So that's a whole different podcast for a different day. I just want to give a shout out to Meerkat for joining the show today. Big fan of his. Obviously, he killed it in the Super Bowl when all the boys were on. So we got to give a shout out to him. Again, Meerkat, just kind of plug your stuff and give the people, an idea of where you're at and what you're up to.
Check me out on Twitter at MeerkatCat with 2 Ks. I mean, I'm just throwing out content, a lot of different things, a lot of gambling going on right now, especially with it legal in New York, pumping out picks and all of that.
Absolutely.
And check out at Degenerate Danger Zone. I do some shows there, write some stuff, post a lot of my picks there as well under the Trainwreck Sports umbrella. So if you want to find me there, I mean, I don't advise following me, but I had some winners now and then. PG is too kind, and I appreciate you having me on once again. This is always my favorite time of the week, recording with you when we get together. And it sucks we don't have any football to bet on for a while. It sucks.
Yeah, I've got my hockey sweater on right now. I'm repping the Dallas Stars. They're playing tonight. It was kind of my pick on. I wrote a little bit about that on codasportscappers.com, and also I think it was tweeted out too. We're on the Dallas Stars money line tonight, still 0-0 against the Blackhawks. So when this pod comes out, you'll know if I was a winner or a loser. I'm hoping to be a winner. I've got my Jamie Benn jersey on. We'll see. But it's always a lot of fun to do these podcasts with Meerkat. So show him a lot of love. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Let's have a great weekend. Peace out, y'all.
Peace.